Hello, comrades and peers. Time marches on, like Napoleonic soldiers heading for the enemy, and we are rapidly approaching Christmas. This is a time of peace and contemplation, when you are able to ignore some of the events going on these days. But being full of good intentions, I thought about fraternity, or in other words, the brotherhood between miniature wargaming and role-playing. Two videos made me think about this topic, one from Questing Beast, the other from Miniature Adventure. You will find both links down below. In his video, Big Lee discussed the similarities and differences between skirmish games and role-playing games. A fairly good starting point, as a skirmish game, Chainmail, is an ancestor for both approaches. The grandfather whose children took very different paths into the future. Especially if you don't just look at the individual games, but also think about campaigns, there are even more similarities to find. On the other hand, even in role-playing games, one-shot adventures are common. Another similarity, in the old days, there was an RPG tournament scene, now mostly forgotten. Groups of adventurers tried to successfully overcome a dungeon in a short time as possible, or at least not to perish before they reach the end. Not the same as a typical miniature wargaming tournament, but if you ignore the riddles, it can be pretty close. Ben of Questing Beasts looks in his video more into RPGs and what they are intended for. He mentions that OD&D was described as rules for a new type of wargame. For him, the focus in RPGs is not on the role-playing side itself, but rather that the rules of this type of games are open to new decisions and ways to approach a problem. The origin of this concept was borrowed by one of the oldest wargames, Kriegsspiel, great-great-grandfather of our beloved miniature wargaming campaigns. Now, so close to Christmas, the question arises as to whether the relatives sometimes meet up. If there are times in which miniature wargaming and role-playing come together. And that's what they do sometimes. A well-known example is Warhammer Fantasy, which, in addition to novels, also received a role-playing game in 1986. This provided a depth and detail to the world that few could achieve. The first occupying role-playing campaign, The Enemy Within, was also of a high standard, and not just a marketing idea for the miniature game. The following Realm of Chaos expansions included game data for both systems, and thus ensured that both areas remained interlinked. It was easy to translate most characters or monsters from one game to the other, as both games used similar stat lines. A good example of how miniature games and RPGs can complement each other. Historical games always have the advantage that you know why or what was fought for. Due to the depth that a role-playing game requires or creates for itself, the miniature battles also take a deeper meaning. Playing the Battle of Prague is different if you have already read about it in books or heard rumors about it as a game character. In the end, the role-playing games even survived the fall of the main game, And there are role-playing games for Age of Sigmar and 40k too. Another example would be Mechwarrior, as a role-playing game based on the miniature game of the same name. Also released in 1986 was a role-playing game based on the novels for this game. The books had already created a certain dynamic in what was initially a fairly static background world. But now you could delve in a little deeper. Personally, I found this combination a bit more problematic as the players were operating a bit too close to the front. And the most important possession, the mech, was almost unaffordable. A loss had consequences that were difficult for the player to bear. But these two games have survived together to this day and are still played. Manting, together with Red Scare, started an attempt to release Kings of War as a role-playing game in 2019. Unfortunately, the Kickstarter project failed. So much for examples where miniature games have been expanded into role-playing games. You could say the view was transferred from the macro level to the micro level and zoomed in on the background world. Was there also the opposite attempt, zooming out of the role-playing game into a broader conflict? You can be sure. In 1995, the campaign setting Birthright was released for AD&D, which was more concerned with political intrigue and military conflicts. Not a classic miniature game, but almost a campaign game system to generate suitable battles. Iron Crown had already tried something similar in 1992 with the Warlore supplement for the role-playing game Rolemaster. It came out as a box set and used cardboard counters on a hex card to play with. 2 years later, in 1994, Sea Lore was added for naval battles. Both systems are full of the usual Rolemaster charts and tables. In case anyone turns the nose up at the counters, Napoleonic battles actually started in 1989 as a game with counters too. What makes the reunion of role-playing games and miniature wargames so interesting? I will try to explain my view on this topic. Let's imagine an epic film or even a book. In order to involve the viewer in a story, you need to develop characters so that he is taken along by their story. Even battle paintings like Waterloo or Black Hawk Down need something like that, or fail because of it, like the last Napoleon film. But epic battles, such as the images of Borodino in War and Peace, also leave an impression and keep the viewer in suspense. The Lord of the Rings also had both levels, the big politics, the epic battles, but also the small events in the background, with some unexpected results. Who wouldn't enjoy the whole experience in all its ups and downs? Role-playing can be the tool to infuse the heroes and commanders with depth and meaning. Wargaming can be the tool to experience epic conflicts as more than as a spectator. This is my view of the interaction between role-playing games and miniature wargames. Do you know any other games that switched from one genre to the other? When it comes to role-playing games, I can't think of many examples. In Germany, there was still DSA, Das Schwarze Auge, with the battles of Thousand Ogres. GURPS Conan had a simple mass combat system, and Shadowrun a skirmish offshot. Maybe there are more out there than this. In one of the next videos, I will give a short hobby recap for 2024. Take a look at the year in retrospect. What was good? What didn't work so well? Then 2024 will soon be a thing of the past. Have a nice Christmas celebration and take care of yourself and your loved ones. Till then, and a happy Christmas vacation.